Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 127. I'm going to ask a favour. I really should do this every episode. I don't do it often enough. But if I looked at the stats for the podcast yesterday, hundreds of people listen to this. Hundreds, which is crazy. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Do you know, somebody left me a really nice comment on TikTok yesterday. I'm going to read it out to you, actually. TikTok. Where is it? There we go. Let's see if I can find it quick enough. Amber. Love heart. Union Jack. European flag. Earth emoji. That's her name. Great post. Thanks. Off topic. I could listen to you all day long. Your voice, accent and cadence is so comforting. Sorry for being weird, but I had to tell you. So if you find my, what did it say? Voice, accent, cadence, something comforting, let me know. Anyway, good morning. Do you know what? This is so nice. It's springtime. Every morning when I come out now, the sun's rising into my eyes right now. Birds are all singing. Rabbits are running around, baby bunnies are running around. It's all very lovely. And it is such an incredible way to start every day, being out at a time of morning when most people are still sleeping. Honestly, try it. It sets you up for the day, I promise you. Especially like now that we're out of the winter. Winter's a horrible time to start trying to get up and go walking in the morning. Springtime onwards, the best. Anyway, the thing I was going to say, so I don't do this nearly often enough. So I was looking at the stats. Most people, the majority of people, listen to this on Spotify. And I think second was Apple Podcasts. If you're on Spotify, can you just open your phone? And I'll go to it myself. Open your phone and back out to the actual podcast page where you see that yellow and purple picture of me at the top, the Monroe Method Clancast, and you will see a little star below the picture. And at the moment it says 5.0 77, which means the podcast has had 77 5-star ratings. If you tap on the 3 dots on the right-hand side, rate show, you can rate it there. I'm not going to tell you to do 5 stars, of course, because it's entirely up to you, but I'm sure nobody wants to be the first person not to leave a 5-star review. Come on. I don't know what it does. Maybe one day it will put me into some kind of rankings. Maybe one day it will make me discoverable by people who don't already know who I am. I don't know. It's a throwaway thing that takes you literally no time or effort. And now we can dive into the good stuff. I'm going to read out something that I wrote on my phone yesterday. I don't know what the title of this podcast is going to be, but once I start talking, I'm sure I'll figure it out. So I wrote this yesterday when I was writing a daily post for my community. So I did a check-in. I'll read this first, right? You're not here for fast. You're here for forever. Now, don't mistake that as me saying people are going to be working with me forever. That's not what it means. I'll explain. You're not here for fast. You're here for forever. I wrote this, or I said this to a client on a check-in yesterday when she's only in her first week. She's already talking about being frustrated at the scales and all the usual stuff. But at the same time, she also went on to have a massive conversation about how she's done this, and I've always chased fast results in the past, and that's why I've dieted for 20 years, and I completely get that, and I understand all the stuff that I've been reading and listening to, and the videos I've been watching. It all makes sense, and yet, she knows that her desire to lose weight quickly is a part of the problem, but she still wants it to happen. And I guess this is one of the benefits and the advantages of actually working with a coach, actually checking in with someone who will sit down in front of you regularly and say, look, here are all the wonderful things that you are doing right, do more of those. Here are the things that you could be doing better, do more of that. And now let's talk about the things that you've brought up that you think are all right and normal, but really they're a part of the problem, and I'm going to help you see that. That was quite a good summary, actually, of what a coach does. So we praise people when they're doing well. We encourage them in areas they could be doing better. And then we have conversations about specific topics. That's a very concise summary, because that's exactly what I do. We start with the positives. You're doing this great, you're doing that great, this, and this, amazing. Keep doing all of those things. However, here are a few areas where you could be doing a little better that are going to add to your results, that are going to help you improve. And here are the 3 things that you said during this check-in that are potentially disordered thoughts, disordered behaviours. You're talking about disordered eating. You're hoping that things that happened in the past, or you're trying to bring the past into the here and now. So people will say, oh, when I went to Slimming World, I was losing 4 pounds a week. And it's like, no. You lost 4 pounds 1 week, but you had gained 2 pounds the 2 weeks previous. So you didn't lose 4 pounds in a week. You lost 4 pounds across 3 weeks. It's just the stupid way that they use the scales there. Stepping on them once a week in the middle of the day or at night on a set of scales 1,000 people have stepped on before you that day. Maybe not quite. On an uneven church hall floor in a different spot every time. No. We cannot compare these things. Because Slimming World heap loads of praise on that, they want to promote this idea that people are losing massive amounts of weight in a single week. They would never, like I do this, so like I'll sit down to a fortnightly check-in with someone and they'll have lost no weight, allegedly, right? Apparently on the scales you've lost no weight. And I'll say, look, I can see all the data, I can see all your tracking, I know that you are losing body fat. Now that's not helpful because you need to believe that you're losing body fat. Otherwise you're going to give up or get frustrated or get annoyed. So then again, that's the job of a coach. My job is to say in those moments, because this is very normal, by the way, to not see a loss on the scales for a fortnight. Completely normal. And these are people who are stepping on the scales daily. Like this week's been a great example. Because it's just been, I don't know if it's been half term or for you, whatever. But we've just came out the other side of Easter. This is Wednesday after bank holiday weekend. And people have been, I was off the first week and then back to work the second week, but it was still Easter all the way through, kids were off. So it would be very normal for someone to be still in a calorie deficit over the last 2 weeks. But, like I saw yesterday, I'm saying yesterday because it was my first day back after bank holiday Monday. But from what I saw yesterday, people, if you look at your calories, if you're tracking, if you're using MyFitnessPal or, well, no, mostly MyFitnessPal because you don't get this in NutriCheck. If you're using MyFitnessPal and you look at your calories across a week, you'll see your bar graph. If you tap on net, you'll see it in green. If you tap on total, you'll see it in the different shades of blue. If your calories are going through a roller coaster pattern, so if they're up, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, down, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, back up, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, your weight is also going to follow, mostly, it doesn't always pan out like this, but your weight's going to follow a roller coaster pattern. And that's fine, because if across the week, overall, you are in a calorie deficit, you are consuming fewer calories than you need, then you're still losing body fat. However, the management of your calories, which is absolutely fine, by the way. If you're ever struggling to understand this concept, just liken it to finances, right? Just switch it into money. So always switch calories into money and it will make more sense. If I put, let's say on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if I don't put any money into a savings account Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I put £50 a day into a savings account Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I've still got £200 of savings. And I think money just helps make it make sense. Because we all understand money. Very few people understand their bodies and calorie deficits and how fat loss actually works. But yeah, if you save nothing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but you save £50 every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, by the end of a week, you still have £200 of savings. And it's the same with body fat. If you decide, especially if it's a bank holiday weekend, that you are going to come up to maintenance Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That will be 3 days of no fat loss. But if you were in a deficit Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before that, then you had 4 days of fat loss. You've not quite lost the pound that you wanted to because it's not been the full deficit for 7 days. But it's just over half a pound, 0.6, 0.65 of a pound. So it's still progress. However, because of the way you roller coasted your calories, because they went up, because you came up to maintenance for a few days, food has weight, right? Especially if you're tracking, you should know that because you're weighing things. You know that that was 50 grams, that was 100 grams, that's 300 grams of chicken breast, that's 200 grams of pasta. Add all that up, right? If you sit down to a meal and you are eating a kilo of food, especially for dinner at night when it's going to sit in your body, you are going to wake up the next day with that kilo of food in your body. Maybe the next night your dinner's only half a kilo and you wake up the next day lighter. So the first thing is you have to remember, food has weight. It weighs something. Not only that, the way that your body processes it and digests it, and it may need to store the calories because, you know, if you eat a 500 calorie meal and you spend an hour digesting and absorbing that, you now have 500 calories in your system. You don't suddenly use those 500 calories. It's the same with your car. You fill up your petrol tank, you put in your 45, 50, 55 litres. You don't use it all at once. You use a little bit of it at a time. That's why you have a fuel tank to store the fuel to feed the engine. Your body works the same way. You have storage capacity in your body so that when you eat that 500 calorie meal, but you're running at 150 calories per hour, that 500 calorie meal will be digested and absorbed. The 500 calories will be stored and you will work your way through that at, don't apply this to you, I'm just speaking generally. You might work through that at 150 calories an hour. If you go to bed after having quite a large dinner, 800, 900, 1,000 calories, maybe more, you're going to put all that into storage, then you're going to go to sleep. When you're sleeping, if we stick with the car analogy, if you just switch on a car and start the engine and do nothing, your car will idle. It will burn through fuel, but it will burn through it extremely slowly. That's what your body does when you're sleeping. You go into idle mode, where you're not moving, you're not doing very much, but your body is resting and sleeping, your heart's still beating, your brain's still functioning, your organs are still working away, but you don't need as much energy. So your, calories per hour rate might tick down to like 100 per hour or 90 per hour. Very low. But if you've had 1,000 and odd calories for dinner, maybe a snack after, and then you go to bed for 8 hours and you're only ticking over at 90 calories per hour, you're not going to use all that up. So you wake up with it still in storage. And while it's in storage, it's not just calories being stored. It's not just the glycogen being stored. It's also water. We store water alongside, what's the grams? For every gram of carbohydrate stored, we store, is it 3 grams of water, 2 grams of water? I don't remember off the top of my head. It's not something I use often, but you get the idea. You store like double or triple the amount in fluids. And this is why your weight reacts the way it does over the weekend, mostly. Sleeping patterns, eating patterns, meal size, eating out, higher calories, sodium intake from takeaways, dehydration from alcohol, all this stuff. What was the point in that? So anyway, it would be normal not to see the scales come down over a couple of weeks, and that's the point. And it's my job to say, look, I can look at all this data you've showed me, and I can say, because everything I do is data-driven. Data-driven is the best way. Because I can look at it all and say, right, you have told me that you feel your tracking is 95% accurate. There might be a couple of things here and there that slip through, but overall, I'm pretty much looking at everything. I can tell you with certainty that you have lost body fat this 2 weeks. Now, I know the scales haven't shown you. I know it looks like you're the same weight you were 2 weeks ago, but I can run all of these numbers and tell you that you are down 2.5 pounds this fortnight. So I can tell you what your body fat's doing by looking at the stuff that you've showed me. So I can tell you better than the scales. And the only reason the scales haven't been able to show you is because it's been Easter. You went out for that meal, you did that day, then you had your bank holiday weekend. All that's done is mask your progress. It's hidden your progress from you. And then at the next check-in, 2 weeks later, they're down £5. Now, I do not then go to that person like Slimming World would and say, oh my God, you've lost £5 and just in 2 weeks, that's incredible. That's not how it works. I would go back to that person's last check-in and say, that's why you didn't lose any weight. Well, you apparently didn't lose any weight last time. If we now take that £5 that you've lost this fortnight and extend that back over the last fortnight, it's not £5 in 2 weeks, it's £5 over 4 weeks. You're losing £1.25 per week. Everything is ticking over exactly as it should, and it's making perfect sense. Whereas Slimming World would happily say, oh, everybody, round of applause. Susan has lost £5 in a week. And they wouldn't say, yeah, but, nobody would put up their hand and say, but she gained £6 last week, though. Nobody would say that. They don't talk about that. No, let's just not talk about that. I want to go on social media and be able to say that Susan lost £5 in a week. Anyway, what was the point? Oh, yeah. So, Christ. This person checked in. It was just a week. She was unhappy with her weight loss. And I looked at her tracking. She'd only been tracking for 5 days. She checked in a little bit early, and she didn't track the first day, so she had barely been tracking. She'd only seen 4 weights. Nothing was even happening yet. And this is the benefits of having a coach. Because if you do not challenge the thought processes that got you to this point, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how hard you try, what the numbers are, what your calories are, what your macros are, like none of that, how many steps you're doing, how much sleep you're getting, how much water you're drinking. None of that shit matters if you're not working on the stuff that got you here. You didn't get here because you don't drink enough water. You didn't get here because you don't sleep 8 hours, you sleep 6. You didn't get here because you don't know the number of calories you're supposed to be eating. You got here because you use food as a crutch. You use it to cope with your emotions. You use food when you're stressed. You use alcohol when you're stressed. You get drunk every weekend and you waste 16 hours on a Sunday eating to excess and vegetating on the couch. You eat food when you're bored. You eat in secret. You clear every plate. You eat takeaways 3 or 4 times a week. These are the reasons that people gain weight. Not because of calorie numbers or macros. That stuff helps people bring balance to the diet and teach them how they should be eating and teach them what their body needs and what that then equates to as quantities of food. But you need to work on the stuff that got you to this point, because if you don't, you'll never get away from this point. You'll temporarily get away from it. Let's bring it back to finances. I use this one all the time. Like imagine someone who is awful with money. Always in their this might be you, I'm sorry if I'm describing you and making you feel terrible. Used to be me once upon a time. In my late teens. Christ. What's that? 30 years ago. 20 years ago. God, I nearly done myself then. I'm only 39. You're never out of your overdraft. You've got credit cards that are maxed. You're taking out consolidation loans to sort it all out, only to start the cycle all over again, right? You do not have a debt problem. You have a spendy problem. This is how much I make. This is how much I spend. How much I make is lower than how much I spend. And this is why I'm in this situation. Does that sound familiar? Here's how many calories I burn. Here's how many calories I eat. I burn this many calories and I eat this much more calories. That's why I'm in this position. But that's the overall problem. Everybody gets there in their own way. Everybody gets into debt in their own way. Some people like shoes. Some people like holidays. Some people like nice dinners. Some people like spending on cosmetic procedures. And we all, when it comes to finances, people have their own little things that they are more than happy to get into debt for, but other things are a waste of money. And we can bring that back to food. There are things that people love to eat. People don't think twice about drinking alcohol, but they wouldn't eat, I wouldn't dare eat fruit or vegetables. we all become, we all financial situation, we all get into our situations overall in the same way. Too much spendy, not enough makey. And it's the same with our body. The vast majority of people do not want to exercise, and the vast majority of people want to eat to excess. That's just how it is. But if you've done it for years and you no longer want to be like this and you want to sort it out and that's it, I'm done with being overweight, I want to do something about it, then it is not, I need to find the diet that will help me lose the most amount of weight in the shortest amount of time. I need to find the right calorie number. I need to find this. I need to find that. I need someone to give me workouts. I need meal plans and recipes. Like, nobody is overweight because they don't have recipes. I've got a big bugbear about recipes. I detest it when people ask me for recipes. There are awful coaches on the internet who gain massive followings because they Google recipes and just make good videos about them and then sell their own recipe books. But then they'll start a coaching program, which is a load of shit. But hey, at least the recipes were good. Anyway. So, back to the quote. What was the quote? Something like, So this is what I said to this person yesterday. And we'll wrap this up here because I want to record another one while I'm out on my walk. You're not here, we had this conversation about, she wants the scales moving faster. I'm like, you're only 4 days in technically, on paper. You've only been tracking for 4 full days. You've checked in at the end of the full 4th day. You've only stepped on the scales a few times. Like, we can't really say that things aren't moving. Like, if you're going to get frustrated now, what's it going to be like 6 months down the line? So that's my cue to step in as a coach and manage expectations and say, look, if you want, and the thing is, she's already worked through the initial content of the course. I've already delivered the big talk about how this cannot be like any other weight loss attempt you've done in the past. You cannot treat this like a diet. You cannot treat this as a means to an end. You have to adopt this as a new way of living. Otherwise, this doesn't work. My whole thing is helping people lose weight for life. If you come in here and you decide that I'm going to approach this with my diet mentality and I'm just going to do it for a little while, I'm not really going to take it in, I'm not really going to eat like this forever, I'm just going to do it to get my weight down, then you're going to turn my process into another diet. I can't stop people from doing that. I do my very best, but some people are just at different stages where they're not quite ready for that, and they still have like another 10 years of yo-yo dieting left in them before they realise. Like, so many people come back to work with me and they'll be like, I was here in 2018, but I was just trying to use it to drop some weight for a holiday and I know I didn't do it right. And it's like, now we're like 7 years later, their weight's still the same place it was 7 years ago, and it's like, I'm ready to do it properly now. I'm like, why didn't you just do it the right way 7 years ago? You could have been living at maintenance for 7 years instead of yo-yo dieting. But anyway, so this is the job of a coach, to have these big conversations, to challenge your thoughts, to challenge. Here's another thing. Like, I have people who've been with me for maybe like 6 to 12 months, and they think they know it all. They think they know what I'll say. They think they know the process inside and out. And then they'll get to a check-in and they'll say something about, I don't know, they'll say something about bad food, or they'll say something about bread, or something that should be base knowledge by now, and they don't even realise it. And I'll pick up on it, especially when it's a longer term member, and say, you do realise what you just said there, right? And they'll come back and go, oh my God, I didn't even realise I said that. And I mean, it's not a negative thing. It just shows how ingrained these long-term thoughts are. These things given to us by Slimming World and the likes of Weight Watchers, like, you can't eat bread twice in one day, and this and blah, blah, blah. Anyway. So, hopefully that quote makes more sense now, right? You're not here for fast, you're here for forever. And what I meant when I said to that person yesterday was, you're not here to lose weight fast, because that is the thing that has kept you stuck. That's the thing that has led you here. That's the thing that, after 30 years of yo-yo dieting, has your weight higher now than the very first time you thought you needed to lose weight, because you've always wanted fast, you've wanted it quick. You've wanted it to cost little effort. You've not really wanted to change anything. That's why you have dieted your way to a higher weight over 3 decades. Now that you're here, you're not here for that anymore. We're not doing fast. We're not chasing the scales. You are here for forever, meaning you are here to do it once, do it for the last time, and do it right, so that you never have to do it again. Anyway, that's enough from me. Until next time.